Hello, this is Garrick, and I'll be doing a bouncing ball animation in Clip Studio Paint while covering the 3 different types of vector curves that the program provides. You will notice that these settings, the settings in the continuous curve tool, are basically the types of curves that are available in the program. There are 4 options, which 3 of them are curves, and the last one, or the first, is the straight line, which, while it is kind of registered as a curve in the program, it kind of isn't really a curve, so I'm excluding that. So I'll be starting off with a regular canvas to draw out my shapes and then adding a timeline afterwards for the animation. This will be useful if you are drawing an illustration and might consider animating it later. So I'll go over a few steps for that as the tutorial goes on. So first off, I'll make a vector layer and go ahead and introduce the spline curve with the ellipse tool. Currently, there is only one setting for the ellipse tool, and that is just to create a spline circle or ellipse. So that is what we have, and hopefully they will implement a feature to choose cubic or quadratic Bezier instead. So by default, spline curve, you generate tons of points when you make this ellipse, and they are not the easiest to control or adjust. So if ellipse is exactly what you want, this tool is perfect, but if you're going to be adjusting it afterwards, this may be a little problematic, which is why I personally do not recommend using this if you are going to be animating, because it is just troublesome. But it is very good if you want to have a lot of control over the line width, because there are a lot of points and you can be pretty creative with it if you so wish. Next, I'll be drawing the cubic Bezier circle. For this, we need to bring up the grid and set the snap to grid option. So there are 2 ways of drawing a cubic Bezier circle. The first one is a really simple 2-point, which I do not recommend. I forget the ratio currently. I think it was, no, it's not that. It was, oh, here it is. 3-point radius, 4-point for handle. There's a peculiarity here if you are familiar with the connect vector line tool or a lot of the other figure tools, that this is actually connecting. Usually you'll have a bit of trouble if you do not have at least 4 points on the line and try to create an enclosed figure. So there's this option, but as you can see, you only have 2 points to really control this, and that's not very useful. But you can easily just add more control points to make the adjustments you need. But this is not exactly the one that we want. I will go for the 7 radius, 4 handle length. So 7 radius, 4 handle length. This version has equally spaced handles, which is probably going to be a lot more useful than just having 2 points with unequally unevenly spaced control points and handles that are not equal length. So this is not exactly a perfect circle. There's some slight variances at the edges, but it's as good as I can get it without making some extremely giant circle ratio. So the strength of the cubic Bezier is that you can draw really smooth curves with the fewest number of points. Unfortunately, the handles can be a bit of a nuisance at times, so it's a bit of a give and take depending on what you're doing. You will notice this as I go. I will make a note of this later with the handles and how they're going to be getting in the way when I get to animating the bouncing balls. And then finally, for the quadratic Bezier, if you remember, if you noticed for the cubic Bezier, I will basically be drawing the same points that the quadratic Bezier circle kind of touched on. So one of the points was 7 point, so 7 radius. I'll be drawing a fairly evenly spaced octagon. So 7, 7, 5 by 5. Okay, I have to double check. So as you can see, it's kind of following the same circle. So this isn't exactly perfect either. You can see some tiny inconsistencies. You can drop this down to 6 points instead if you want, but the imperfections are a whole lot more obvious, so I don't really recommend it. And 4 points is just completely out of the question for the quadratic Bezier. It's just, it's horrible. I'll just go ahead and do that really quick. It's horrible. So yeah, here's your 3 different types of curves. The quadratic Bezier is probably going to be the easiest to work with while animating because you have a nice balance between few curves and just the type of handles that it has is a lot easier to work with. I will demonstrate this later with the pinch vector line tool. But first off, we will start the really basic animation. So first timeline, we'll just go ahead with that setting, even though we're probably not going to animate for that long. All right, new animation folder. We will go ahead and drag our layer into the folder and label it 1. In order to make this really fast and painless to animate, I will go into animation, edit track, batch specify cells, start number and number Hmm, not too sure what my end number should be. We had 240. Let's go for 120. So this will be one cell for every uh, one cell for every 2 frames. I think that's right. Anyhow, um, we have our first layer, first frame. These are going to be the bouncing balls. So we'll just place them up top. Um, enable enable onion skin. I will, because I batch specified all the cells, these are empty cells that will automatically link to whatever layer gets named to them because they're not registered to a layer yet. So copy, paste. Because I'm doing a copy paste within the animation folder, it will automatically change the copied layer to the next number. So because it's 1 and there's 1, the copied layer will become 2, 2, the copied layer will become 3, etc. If there already exists a layer between 1 and 2, it'll become 1A and 1B, etc. So it's useful for something like this where you can just copy, paste, transform, etc. So we'll just quickly lay down the placement for all of these. I think this one I will have as the impact point. So let me just make a little mark over here. No. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm just copying, pasting, and then using the arrow keys um, to move the layers around. Let me see. So something you want to do with this is top, bottom, about halfway. Depending on what type of material you're trying to imitate with the bounce, you'll choose a different point for the top of the bounce or top of the return bounce. And I should go ahead and draw a reference line for bottom, where the point of impact is, because that is where I need to line everything up. Here. Oops, give me a second. I just turned off my screen. Okay. This length is going to get in the way, so here we go. Preview. If your sphere is going to be that stiff, this actually looks okay. Kind of. um, I don't want it to be that stiff, so I am going to make some adjustments. Blah. That is not okay. Oh, that's why. Point of impact was cutting that onion skin a bit short, so let's see. All right. Hmm. All right, let's try this. It, not sure what happened. Oh, there it is. All right, let's see. That second bounce might be a little too high. Add 8 frames. This will be an imperfect demo anyhow. Let's just move on to the next part. So here we are going to do the squash part of the animation. So for this one, for the spline curve, we don't really have that much choice in how to do this because we have a lot of control points, and those are a bit annoying to deal with. So for now, we will just shrink, we'll just resize each of these for now. So when you only resize them on the circles on the y-axis, you end up with a very with a bounce that only compresses. Your bouncing ball basically compresses rather than retain its volume. So if what you want is for your bouncing ball to have that sort of compress thing like those stress balls, um, this is fine. But if you want to have a little bit more character, you will want to make your circles expand a little bit on impact. So for these, I will grab this, hold Alt so the adjustment is made from the center rather than from the sides, and just pull it out a little bit. So you can see it has a little bit more spring to it, to the bounce. Of course, I could probably go a bit further and squish the balls down a bit more on the point of impact so it's a bit more expressive. And I'll do that later, maybe. But yeah, this will be enough for a very simple bouncing ball. But to make these have a little bit more character, you want to do a little more than just resize. So for this spline, we're going to ignore it. it's it's too hard to adjust. But for the cubic and quadratic Bezier, we will actually go in and adjust these. What I will demonstrate here right now is the pinch vector line tool for adjusting these. Something you want to, if you're going to be animating using the pinch vector line tool, you do not want to have the add control point setting turned on. You want to leave that off so you basically pull your control points around. This will be similar to how you would animate in Adobe Animate with just clicking and dragging the edges. So this might be useful. Otherwise, you just go in and select the control points and the handles yourselves. Unfortunately for the pinch vector line tool, this does not actually adjust your handles. So this can get a bit problematic depending on what you're doing. Oh, it does change it a little bit. But not quite enough, honestly. There are times when you'll have a lot of trouble with the pinch vector line adjustments if you're using the cubic Bezier. So now to finally do the adjustments with the pinch vector line, we'll go ahead and do this, stretch it out a little bit, nudge it over. Something you want to take note of with this pinch vector line tool is that it will grab everything that is in the area. So you see these two are within the selection area. They are both being moved, so you will want to be somewhat careful with your selections when you're doing this. So we'll just do that for now. Depending on what you're comfortable with, you'll do one or the other, selecting the points themselves or using the pinch vector line. I will go to the top of the curve. Let's do this. Something I don't like with the pinch vector line tool is that we can't adjust the effective range with the what's it? The select larger or smaller brush size shortcut key. So it's a little unfortunate. Guess who's going down? So you can see that making all these little adjustments adds a little bit of character to the bounce. So yeah, and for this one you could also just easily do this instead. Getting some delays. Yes. So this is it, basically. So have fun with this.